in order to support our educational mission. Those intentional improvements, as outlined by the theory of action, are school safety, ensuring social emotional health of all of our students, teacher and leader effectiveness, the engagement of students and families in the greater school community, and of course, the managing of our fiscal resources in a responsible way. That theory of action permits us to support the mission of the school district to have the opportunity to develop intellectually, socially, emotionally, physically, each student in a safe and orderly and positive school environment. So, although tested by this pandemic, we are steadfastly committed to achieving that mission. Next slide. So in summary for this hearing, our total budget amounts to $21,375,000. And the revenue comes from two main sources. That would be state aid and the local taxpayer. Within the state aid category, there are two guiding principles and two categories for which we get state aid. The first is the foundational aid, and that's the amount, that amount has remained flat for this current year. So for us here at Fort Plain, that means that the amount that we receive next year is equivalent in value to the amount that we received for this year. The second category is expense-based aid, and specifically, strategically, that expense-based aid is up 2.41%. And that's really a good thing because we see an increase in the reimbursements that we get because of that expense-based aid. Over the past 5 years, the average budgetary increase has been $475,000. And the proposed budget for this year is within that range of $425,000, so slightly less than what we had typically done on a 5-year average. And this is going to result in a very conservative tax levy increase of 1.81%. And although the increase, the amount has been contained through cost savings measures, most notably through attrition and being very strategic about our replacement of staff upon retirement. Our next slide. So this chart illustrates the relative year-to-year changes in both the categories of expenditures and revenues. And that's between the 1920 school year and the 2021 school year. On the expense side, you have the employee benefits and the debt services, which are the primary drivers of the associated expenses. And on the revenue side of things, we have a conservative tax levy increase that's balanced with state aid increases that are attributed to our reimbursement aid categories, and the foundation aid was held flat once again. So in terms of the general support budget, what you're going to see here, with the exception of normal contractual increases, the increase to the Board of Education, Finance, and the staff are attributed to BOCES related expenses. For example, one of these increases is a result of board docs and some policy services that we have in place. Another is the additional cross-contract services for the ESSA reporting software. That's Every Student Succeeds Act, and that was put in place last year. You also notice that there's a decrease in the maintenance of $35,342, which is a proportional 12.5%. Again, this is some intentional savings that was achieved through attrition and not being very strategic about the replacement of that individual through the retirement, and it's some advanced planning this year that's going to affect us in a positive way for next year. Feline, you can feel free to jump in at any time if, excellent. So on to slide number 5. The instructional budget, there's a couple of items that we want to note here. The decrease in the category that's relative to to students with disabilities. This is once again achieved through savings through attrition, not replacing someone who had been working in that capacity. And the additional savings was a result of some changes in special education services that were being provided. The increase in teaching special schools and pupil costs that we have to incur. For the pupil and transportation budget, we ultimately show a slight decrease in our transportation expenses overall for next year. And this savings will be achieved through attrition and, again, a reduction in the cost to some repairs to the building itself. If I remember correctly, there may have been some roofing repairs done last year. So obviously that's not an expense that we're going to have to incur next year, and hopefully not for many years to come, so long as that roof holds up. Again, the savings through attrition and the overall transportation budget has been reduced by about $2,853. So that's a good sign. On the revenue summary, once again, the foundation aid has held flat, which means that we're going to get the same dollar amount next year that we got this year proposed. Our state aid did increase, although the foundation aid held flat from the 1920. Our state aid did increase, and you'll see an increase in the revenue of 2.41, which is attributed to, again, intentionally building in those BOCES reimbursements, those expense-based aids that we contract out to BOCES for, are what we're going to see. Those reimbursements come back at a high rate. I believe transportation was around the 90% return rate. Some other, the BOCES rate. Yep, so our BOCES rate fluctuates annually, about 80%, transportation at 90%. So bolstering those expense-based aids ultimately helps us in the long run because we get a higher return on the investment by going through those BOCES contracts to get those services. We're also able to reduce the appropriated fund balance by a conservative $25,000. Again, this is a wise practice because we don't want to use one-time expenditures to offset and balance our budget for reoccurring expenses that we're going to have from year to year. And it does show some responsibility to our taxpayers with a minimal and conservative 1.81 tax levy increase as a result of that. So we're still managing that money and making sure that we're not using that fund balance to balance the budget. On the expense side of things, we're looking at instructional costs and the associated benefits to those instructions that really encompass the large part of the budget. That's about 77% of our budget for this coming school year. And it's therefore responsible we have to be responsible in making every deliberate decision about replacing staff through attrition. So we really have to target our costs and make sure that we are being fiscally responsible and right-sizing our staff to meet the demographic of students that we have. So every time we have someone that retires, we have to be very, very careful and strategic about replacing that position and or combining responsibilities like we have in the past to be able to put forth a responsible budget. Also contained on this slide are the increases to the TRS, which are really out of our control. And what's in our control was the negotiated a better rate for health insurance. That was this year. That's going to affect us going forward for next year. So that's really good news for us heading into the next fiscal season. And it shows, again, some responsibility of not accepting the numbers that we get, but really trying to massage them and work with our vendors to make sure that we're being responsible with the taxpayers' resources. Rounding out the other categories here are the required debt services, our transportation, and our general support, which are relatively conservative in comparison. It's also important to note that the contingency budget would really look the same as the proposed budget in terms of what the approximate tax levy increase would be for next year.
So the only difference would be our contingency budget would be the same because our administrative portion is less as a percentage than it was prior year. The only thing we would have to do is increase our appropriated fund balance by the budget itself.
The budget itself will remain the same. Thank you, Feline. In summary, we're pleased to present a responsible budget that maintains the integrity of all of our instructional programs, all of our support services that we provide for students, and a conservative budget-to-budget increase of just over $400,000, again, being responsible. While presenting the budget does result in a minimal tax increase of 1.81%, it's laser focused on containing our costs, to safeguarding our programs, and to providing services for students that we serve. The increase equates to a minimal annual cost to the taxpayers in the district. The typical homeowner, that's the typical homeowner with your basic star, would see an increase of approximately $25, and a homeowner with an enhanced star benefit would see about an $11 increase. And again, that's an annual increase. So at this point, we're going to open the floor to any questions on the proposed budget that has been presented for next year. Give people a couple of minutes to chat if they want to throw a question in the chat.
Yeah, they're a little slow, might be slow.
Yeah, it takes time. I'm not seeing the chat light up at all.
Oh,
Guess we did a pretty good job.
We go on to clarification of voter qualifications. Becky, you want me to do it or you want to do it?
You can do it.
Okay, you must be 18 years of age, you must be a citizen of the United States, must be a resident of the district for 30 days prior to offering to vote. Okay. Absentee ballots must be received by the district clerk by 5 p.m. on Tuesday, June 9th, 2020. There will be no in-person voting. Okay. Is that all we have to do on that one? Okay, that's it for the public hearing. I need a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
Second.
Any questions? Are all those in favor? Aye. Okay, that's passed. I need to call to order the regular board meeting on May 27th, 2020. Start right out with,
Ron, you're muted.
huh?
You need to unmute yourself.
Unmute myself.
I got you.
Okay, well, that was a reason for that, but we can do it. You want me to review the?
Now you're.
Yes. Put it on.
Put it on loud. You hear me now? Well, maybe not. I don't know. Okay. Start right out with new business, election inspectors. We have two, right? Suzanne Mann and Nancy Herron will be our election inspectors on June 9th, 2020. We need a motion to accept them as inspectors.
I'll sec.
Any questions on those? All those in favor? Aye. Okay. We're going to change the date of the June Board of Education meeting to, what are we changing it to? June 24th
June 24th at 6.
at 6.
Need a motion. A motion. Is that because?
Yeah, I need a motion.
That's to give us time to do stuff. The original one for the 10th, only a week away. And we've got a lot of postings and stuff to do, so I'll just clean everything up before the end of the year.
Okay, I need a motion to change the board meeting date. Okay, Jeff, any second?
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
That's passed. Okay. Oh. Okay, superintendent's report. Got a report?
Sure, I'll be brief. Just for everyone's benefit, we have all of our information regarding voting is posted on the school website, as are going to be our end-of-year dates for ceremonies and things like that. We're going to get that out to communications tomorrow. So our seniors and the number of events that we have with the associated dates will be posted on the website for tomorrow. Really excited to be able to pull all this together. We finally got some guidance that's going to help us to complete that school year in a very successful way. So we're excited to get that information out to folks.
Becky, are we put posting in the paper how to get a ballot, or are we just do it on the
It's
website?
been in the paper, it's on the website, it's going, I went out on those cards, first postcard had on there how to do it,
Okay,
and the budget flyer that's going out tomorrow also has it.
okay. I just, you know,
We cast it wide in that so everybody knows.
The list that of people that are already on the list is already on the website.
Right.
Also, people can check to see if they're on the past 4 years I did. So there's 329 people so far.
oh, that's great. Good. And when do you send them out? Okay. Okay. We got public comment. We can wait on that one. We have no reason to go in executive session, right? Nothing? I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.